Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us on this episode of the Pave It Forward podcast. My name is Phil Metzger, and with me is Kevin Gray, and we are here to help leaders in the paving industry who are looking to run more efficiently, meet their ideal customer, and improve the lives of those around them through meaningful work. Kevin, how are we this morning?
Great, man. Happy to be here. It's a nice day out, man. Got to relax a little bit yesterday out on the water, and right back in the saddle this morning. So
I'm detecting a water theme here. You
I know, yeah,
doing a little bit of boating this year?
a little bit of boating. Yeah, my partner has always kind of been a river rat, and the more we're being together here, the more and more that she's getting my ass out on the water. So I'm not hating it. I'm not mad at it.
Yeah,
So
that's very different than asphalt. That's
it
a
it
nice switch up.
is. And I tell you what, man, it's it's just being able to find a little time to relax and chill out, which I'm notoriously terrible at. I'm usually just kind of on the grind and on the move and moving, shaking, trying to be productive, and just forcing myself to do something else on the weekends that's actually enjoyable and having a little bit of downtime. It's been nice, man. So
Absolutely.
get a little balance.
Absolutely. Yeah, even I've been working on that myself because I
It's hard to do.
work a lot from the home office, and especially when the family comes home and
Yeah,
you're still in work mode, it can be really hard and even cause a lot of tension. So I've been working
absolutely.
on that too. And of course, I have a 2-year-old now, and he's developing all kinds of personality. So he pretty quickly gets me in the zone of being in kid mode. You know, he doesn't
Yep.
really consider all the pressures of life that we do, and
No.
quite enjoy the joys of entrepreneurship as well yet. So
Yeah.
I'm glad you get to do that. And yeah, I got
It's
to do a
been
little bit of
fun,
that
man.
this summer. So I know we have a little bit more time left in the summer. So why don't we talk about some asphalt paving, and then
It's good, man.
we'll get back to the joys of life here next weekend. But for this episode, I wanted to talk about profit margins, and this is something that kind of seemed to needed to be broken up into two episodes. When I first started thinking about the profit margins, I guess my mind goes to upselling, something like upselling, or perhaps looking at your company and seeing where costs can be cut. But it's a lot more than that. There's a ton of factors that throughout your daily operation that can really lead to a savings over time, which can kind of put you in a beneficial spot there as well. So first of all, just why is maximizing profit margins an important thing? And can you dive into a little bit of your history there?
Yeah, I mean, upselling is great, as long as we're keeping the customer's best interest at heart first and foremost. Uh, I've never been of the camp that's just out there upselling a job to upsell a job. There are some things we can offer, like some extra thickness, or things like that, extended warranties, things that we can do and offer that may upsell the ticket a little bit. But first and foremost, we've got to figure out exactly what best serves our customer and get them aligned with the proper scope and proper piece of maintenance or new build, new construction kind of practices first and foremost before we get into that upsell game at all. And of course, I mean, that's business is business. At the end of the day, of course, if we can maximize a ticket by giving something that a consumer is actually interested in and actually can serve them a little better, sure, we'll upsell a ticket. But a lot of the time, it really just boils down to figuring out how to best operate within your organization with whatever kind of manpower, equipment, tools, resources you have at your disposal in order to maximize a day, maximize logistics, maximize trucking efficiencies, maximize production efficiency, whether you're paving, seal coating, out there doing prep work, whatever it is, how can we get those systems and standards and quality pieces, just tapped in as tight as we can to make sure we're out there moving as quickly and efficiently and productively throughout the course of the day as we possibly can. And that it's critical because every dollar that we can pick up or squeeze out a profit margin is ultimately going to allow us to reinvest back into the company and into better equipment, better systems, better technology, better employees, better benefits for our employees, better, all the things that start at the end of the day really maximizing and building a better culture within the company. So it all adds up and it all plays a piece. And it's a lot of the times the employee or the consumer or just people out there, watching or observing or thinking they understand contracting can say, well, they're just out there trying to get rich, or they're, charging, that's too expensive, or they're gouging or whatever it may be. And really, at the end of the day, if you're operating on a good set of core values and standards and ethics, you're really just trying to do best by your company so that it can ultimately deliver the best experience for that consumer at the end of the day, and the best experience for all the employees that are employed and are out there representing the company day in and day out. So that's really all it's about. Of course, is it good to make a little extra money as the president and the owner at some point in the career to be able to provide for your family and reap some of the benefit and reward from that? Sure. I mean, that's why we take all the risk. That's why we wear all the hats. That's why we take out all the bank loans and put our names on the line each and every day. I'm not saying that's not a piece of it, but in my opinion, and at least in the way that I choose to operate, it's a very small piece of it. So there's a lot of reasons, but it really just, to me, goes back to being able to reinvest in the business.
That's extremely interesting because it's almost counterintuitive to what you think the answer would be when you talk about profit margins, because you're basically saying, first of all, that your upsell is to basically educate the clients on why your base price is even worth it compared to another company's
That's right.
discount price, because they're going to do things to either possibly skimp on material, or they don't have the infrastructure that they do to be able to deliver the experience and the final product. So you're really almost upselling like your actual product. And I think that's something to note. And then also, when you talk about improving profit margins, you spoke about improving everything else but the profit margin in order to improve the profit margin when it comes
Right.
to your company
Right.
systems, your company cultures, and everything else. Because I think uh, in our nature, especially if you're starting up a business or you're having a rough season or you're making a jump to hiring more employees and things are a bit tight on the budget, it's really easy to just see if I can get an extra 1,000, couple thousand out of this job and start there.
Yeah.
But when you're talking about that long term and bringing the value and finding those other ways of doing things, what are some of the biggest challenges facing an asphalt paving business when it comes to managing those profit margins?
It to me, man, it all comes down to communication and planning. I mean, it's really, I've been doing, I think this is my 16th or 17th season. So I've been doing this quite a while now. And it seems like when we're not efficient, when we're not productive, when we're not out there delivering quality, when we're not running logistically smooth, it's really just boiled down to a breakdown in planning first, and then communicating that plan to the team and to the consumer, painting the exact picture of how things need to go. And again, not need to go in order for me to make more money as the owner of the company, but so that we can make as much, be as profitable as possible, so that we can reinvest back into this company. They say, um, I've messed this up again, but um, proper planning prevents piss poor performance. The 6 P's or whatever, and it
Yeah.
couldn't be more true, man. Like it really boils down to that. So it's having a plan, and it's relaying that plan from the sales team who's met with the consumer and giving them the promises that we're going to deliver as a company. And by the way, you go back to talking about upselling or charging a premium price, or being able to deliver more than the competition. That's absolutely what we want to do. And so, yes, that does cost a little more money because we are investing more in our employees. We are investing more in their training. We are investing more in their education. We are investing more in the tools that we give them to work with, the equipment we give them to work with, and on and on. Like, it just costs more money on a company to deliver a premium product. So our sales team has got to be able to convey that to our consumer and say, look, we're going to deliver you the exact and best solution to your problem, better than anyone else. And when you can say that, maybe you should be able to get a little more money, but you've got to be able to deliver on that. So it's got to go all the way from the consumer and sales transaction and conversation and discussion into the operations side of the business, to where those foremen and leaders within the organization can then pass and disseminate that information onto the team that's going to be performing the work, so that it is seamless from that conversation that sales and the consumer had the first time they met, all the way till we send the final invoice, that that picture that we've painted and that promise that we've made looks exactly the same, feels exactly the same, tastes exactly the same as as the word we have given as a company to our consumer. That's the only way that works. If there's a breakdown anywhere in any of that, we start looking like the bad guy. People start getting nervous. People start saying, "Oh, are they just another contractor that's got all these bad reputations?" And on and on and on. The story we hear all the time about people getting taken by contractors, or people not showing up or answering the phone or being there when they say they're going to be there, on and on, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's got to be seamless all the way through that process.
Yep.
Uh,
It's
and
it's
and
almost
that's communication, and that's planning. That's all that is.
Yeah, as in this industry, it's almost like if you don't thrill, then they're just meh, or they're mad.
Yeah,
There's
right.
not like, oh, that was nice, or whatever. Like
Yeah,
it's
they're
almost
not.
like if you don't follow it to a T and thrill them, then even into reviews and continuing the process into another loop there.
Yeah, 100%. They're not going to leave a review. They're not going to tell a friend, because we're all we've almost become complacent to some extent. And with the way that information travels these days via the internet, in the world of DoorDash and Amazon and Airbnb, like, if the experience isn't great, we as the consumers aren't going to be super willing to give feedback or tell a friend or refer you to my neighbor. Like, it's got to be the best. When Amazon says your stuff's going to be here by 10 o'clock tomorrow morning and it's here at 9:30, you're like, man, they nailed it. They did
Absolutely.
exactly what they said they're going to do. And
Yeah.
that's what it takes.
Absolutely. So you just outlined basically the entire customer service experience related to profit margin. When you when you sit down, do you have a general plan? Obviously, you can't look at the whole company at once and try to detect all where the profit margins can be improved. Is there do you use the off season? Do you check in once a month, once weekly? Like what are your kind of go-to thoughts and tactics when you just want to analyze whether it be a specific part of your company or just in general where you might be able to make some improvements?
Well, and it takes some time, because it takes quite a bit of data to start understanding how your business operates. And by the way, and this took me quite a while in business, probably, man, it was, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years into my career, that I figured out that I really got to start understanding what every single piece of my business is costing on a daily basis, even down to the hour. And I can tell you now, doing this as long as I have, even down to the minute, because I've got to know, of how much it costs for me to operate my paver on an hourly basis. These trucks, my manpower, my overhead, like really diving into all of and you can't even work on efficiencies and profitability until you understand exactly how much everything you've got in your overhead, in your production overhead, and in just your general overhead, how much it's costing you every day just to be in business. So until you start wrapping your arms around that and backing into some of those numbers, and then understanding what you've got to charge just to cover that, before you ever get into any kind of profitability. So I mean, there's a lot of pieces to this puzzle. And uh, when I early on, when I was just watching it kind of on a monthly basis in QuickBooks, and then maybe we got into watching it maybe a little bit more on a bi-weekly or weekly basis. Uh, but until I figured out that I've almost got to be watching this on a per job basis and figuring out when profitability was good and when profitability was bad, and start accumulating scenarios and whatever they may be, traffic, weather, how many guys on the crew, how many trucks, how many pieces of equipment, how many times the sales guy had to meet with this consumer to get the deal done. Like all of this data, adds up to the bottom line at the end of the year. You can look in January and set a budget, and you can look at the end of December and see how you compare it against that budget. But it's really all of those daily activities, job by job, and understanding exactly every expense that was involved with creating every dollar of revenue that you generate over the course of a year, and dialing in how to maximize every bit of that. And I know that sounds overwhelming, but I don't know how many times I've heard contractors say, well, we doubled revenue, or we had a good year, we were busy, we were putting money in the bank, and then they get to the end of the year and then all the money's gone and it's a panic through the entire winter. And well, it's because you don't have a clue. You don't understand your numbers. You don't understand what it costs to operate your business. You don't understand that you got $10,000 for a job, but it cost you $9,800 to do it. And maybe that $9,800 wasn't just your hard cost, your labor, your materials, your trucks, the hard costs, things that went into the expenses of that job, but all of the other overhead items that you forgot to attach to that. And you wonder why there's no money left at the end of the season. So you gotta. It's one thing to be a field guy and understand how to go out there and get the job done, but it's another whole ball game to figure out how you've got to run your business and understand your numbers. I mean, everything we do anymore it's all driven by data. It's all driven by data and customer experience. And that's the way it's got to be if you want to have a shot at running a 10, 20, 30, 50, 100-year kind of company. Like it's gonna be very short lived if you don't figure those things out, and figure them out sooner rather than later. If I'm being honest, I probably got lucky the first 5 years of my career that something worse didn't happen, that we didn't didn't run too far out of money, and that we did have at least enough to get going the next season a few times before we really started figuring some things out. I mean, it can get scary, and it can get dangerous, and it can get risky very quickly when you don't understand what's going on.
So that is, yeah, that's it's a different situation this time around. Obviously, when you're talking about the different types of asphalt paving businesses that you've been in. But I was just thinking back for someone that is newer to the industry, perhaps grew up in the asphalt paving or construction world, maybe not in the finance world or have any formal training. I have
Yeah.
kind of two parts of this. One was, what's your kind of business background, and if you had to start learning this, today, how would you approach it as far as organizing your finances and then creating something to where you can check back in regularly and at least look at something and take a sigh of deep breath that you have it under control.
Yeah, I mean, get with a mentor, get with somebody that's done it before. I mean, I was fortunate, and even though I was fortunate in the fact that I have a 4-year degree from a university in business management with a minor in technology, and I did have 5 or 6 years out in corporate America before I, bought a failing asphalt company for the first time. So I had a little bit of business acumen, and I did understand accounting and spreadsheets and QuickBooks to some extent, uh, income, expenses, taxes to some extent. But um, you got to get your arms around that stuff, because those are the kind of things that are killers. And get with a mentor, get with somebody that's done it before. I'm just starting off here again, and wearing a bunch of hats, running more so of the sales and production side of the business. So I've gone out and hired a bookkeeping service, and they're very it's they're keeping the books for me. They're doing my payables, they're doing my receivables, they're doing my P&L statements. They're keeping my checkbook together. All the things that I don't have time to do. And for let's just call it $1,000 a month, I've got someone that can help me. If you can't hire, a full-time office person or someone to, kind of run be an office manager or be a bookkeeper, those tend to be 40, 50, 60, sometimes $75,000 a year positions that when you're just starting out, you're probably likely not going to be able to afford. So at least find somebody that can help keep your ass organized, because I don't know how many times I see these contractors and they've got it's October and they've got every single bank deposit, every receipt, every invoice, every check stub just scattered across the dash of their truck. And they try to put it all together the end of the year or whenever tax season rolls around, and they're like, and again, when you're operating like that, you can't have any idea how much money you're making or losing. You have no clue how profitable you are. It's all laying on your dashboard. Like, so it's just get some systems in place, even if it's not quick, but even if it's just an Excel spreadsheet to say, I made this much money today and I spent this much money today. Just so you can check your ass on a daily basis to say, did we make or lose money today? And if we made money, why? If we lost money, why? And let's fix that, by the way. Let's fix it sooner rather than later so it doesn't become a trend of negativity, for the entirety of a season. So
Over,
just
yeah,
I just you just got to know your numbers. You have to collect your data, and you have to start understanding your numbers. And there's plenty of people out there that can help you do that. Me
yep,
being one of them. Pick up the phone and call me. I've learned it the hard way.
absolutely. Yeah, we're looking into creating an off season, some kind of accelerator or course, or just some kind of base platform where people that are either entering the industry or just want to spend their off season shoring up their processes. We're definitely looking into that. So let us know if you're interested in that. But something that you kind of hinted to was just identifying the bigger causes. When you look at I'm making this much money, I'm losing this much money over every day or over a week. There's a lot of things that could cause that. What are over your 15 plus years of experience? What are some of the more common places that you think asphalt paving business owners aren't paying enough attention to, and maybe want to use as a starting point on something they could look at improving in their profit margin?
Um, a lot of it starts on the estimating side, making sure you're getting accurate measurements, making sure you're getting a good scope so that you know exactly how much time, labor time, and material that you're going to be actually using on a job. It's when you start getting labor overages and trucking overages, and we don't own or operate any of our own trucking yet, right currently. So I'm paying $125 an hour every time I've got to get a triaxle dump truck involved with our projects, or two or three or five or 10, however many trucks it may be. So I've got to make sure from a planning perspective that I've ordered the right amount of trucks to keep the job going efficiently, and then I don't have trucks sitting or waiting, or make sure that the jobs are prepped. I mean, I tell you what, I tell you where the biggest piece of it comes, because like I said earlier, whether it's your workforce, whether it's your paver, your skid steer, your roller, your trucking, your insurance, all these things, if that paver is not, let's just talk about paving, because
Hmm.
if your paver is not moving, it's likely that you're losing money. So that's just a simple one right there,
Hmm.
that you can, be cognizant of, and remind yourself, look, is my paver moving? How long has it been sitting? How long have these trucks been sitting out here with asphalt loaded on them that the clock's just ticking on that hourly rate? So it's understand, have I done a good scope? Have I done a good estimate so I know how long this job is going to take realistically? um, how much material it's going to take pretty precisely, not because even when you start wasting 3, 5, 10 tons a day, that's 10 tons, it's $1,000. Just call it what it is. So that's 1,000. If you're 10 tons off every single day of a 200-day season, what's 200 times 1,000? It's 200,000. It can happen that quick. $200,000 gone because I'm 10 tons off every single day I operate.
Yeah,
That's a
talk
quarter
about a
million
rough off
bucks.
season. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
that could make or break your off season.
it's like, oh, get precise and get accurate in your estimating, and then figure out how you can operate the most efficiently, so that that paver is moving as often and as frequently as possible throughout the course of a day. I mean, uh, if we're just trying to break it down simply, that's a good way to do it. Have I aligned with the correct plant? Am I minimizing my trucking times? Am I driving all over town because the plant's an hour away and it's going to go through traffic at this time? Think about traffic. Think about just how can I most efficiently and smoothly operate my day. And again, it's easy. It's easy not to think about those things and say, oh, we're just going to go out and get a job done. Well, you just go out and get a job done day after day after day after day. Even if you're getting market value or market pricing for your work, don't be surprised if you're not making a good margin. There's always ways to make a better margin, and it's not by shortcutting your customers, and it's not by not paying your employees, and it's not the shortcut route.
Yeah.
The shortcut route's easy, and everybody takes the damn shortcut route. Figure out your business, figure out how to operate, figure out how to be productive, figure out how to deliver amazing consumer experience. That starts solving the problem.
So I picture, Kevin on a nice sized parking lot, and he's looking around and he's seeing green numbers with plus signs everywhere where they're operating well, and red numbers above things that with a minus sign every time that paver standing over the paver and stuff like that. So my thought here is obviously you have a sense of urgency. You knowing these numbers and owning the business and putting all the investment into everything from the financial to the time. And then you're standing on the work site. And how do you convey? Obviously, you can't go up to your workers and be like, our profit. I mean, maybe you can. Our profit margin is dying. You can't just continually just say, hey, we need to move faster. Hey, we need to move faster. So I'm just trying to think of the kind of ownership mentality when you're on a big project and running all these things. How do you convey to your workers, keep them motivated over a huge job, especially if you do have problems and things are stopped and it's discouraging? What are some of the things as you're seeing your profit margins dwindle maybe on site? What are some of the things going through your mind to keep yourself focused and keep your team on task?
Yeah, look, I've done so many projects that I when the pace changes or the production changes or inefficiencies start happening, I just start feeling it and it's not always about the money, but I'd say a bigger part of that is I start to see the things that I've promised the consumer are going to start lacking, or our time frames getting off, or it's more, yes, there is a financial stress and pressure there, but it's, I think, more so than that. I've always got the consumer's interest probably more so at the forefront than even the lack of efficiencies or the profit margin dwindling. It's like, man, we're just simply not delivering. And it's gonna cost, over the course of a 4 or 5 day. Let's talk about a big capital project. We're going to be out here another day or two when they're expecting to have their lot back this weekend. Like, this is not going to be good. This is not a conversation I want to have with a customer, and it could have been avoidable. And so, again, look, uh, you got to be transparent with your teams, and you have got to. And we used to do them. We still, I mean, not used to. We do them. We still do it. Have a plan. Have that meeting at the beginning of the day, or the beginning of a week, and go over the deliverables. Go over the goals. Go over the quotas. Go over and be exactly transparent of how things need to go and why. And you gotta keep that communication and transparency going, especially when things get off track. Sometimes it's better just to take a 5 to 10 minute timeout and call a huddle and get the troops back together and just be very blunt with what's going on and why. And it's easy to play the blame game in those instances too, and start pointing fingers and saying, you're not pulling your weight, or why isn't the quality the way it should be in that area that we just finished? Who was watching it's no. If you're the leader out there, if you're the foreman, you're the owner, whoever's gathering the troops back, just uh don't throw anybody under the bus, and get everybody back on the same page and say, hey, look, we gotta get back into the plan here. We got to get back into execution mode. And and go from there. So it's again, it's going back to that planning piece, going back to that communication piece, even when things are going bad. Some of the things that are easiest ways to kind of get your efficiencies or your margin going down are just uh, when you don't have great leadership out there and you start tolerating some of the actions or behaviors of one or maybe a group of the crew members. And sometimes it's as simple as those gas station stops in the morning or after every single job that add up to 30 minutes to sometimes 2 hours a day if they've stopped multiple times, or taken 15 minutes on the front end and 15 minutes in the middle and 30 minutes on the way in. And so we've done some things like we provide ice, we provide the drinks, we provide, hell, I'll buy you cigarettes, Red Bull. I don't, whatever we can do to keep you on the job and focused and happy. I mean, again, that's an expense that they don't have to pay out every day for their own drinks. I mean, just and profitability helps with that. I can't buy pallets of Gatorades and waters and Red Bulls and ice if I don't have the resources to do it. So it's a give and take, but it's really, communication, planning, and when the plan gets off track, calling a timeout, because those 5 to 10 minute timeouts, can get things back going in the right direction instead of just watching it all fall apart over an hour or two, and then the train's off the track.
Yeah, absolutely. I was thinking just about again like the workflow and keeping the paver moving and things like that. And I think the ability to focus and see on a project that you're focusing on the project and making the customer happy and keeping your word essentially on a project by keeping the paver moving instead of looking around and seeing nothing but profit margins. That I can see why that would equate well to your own mental sanity, and not keeping it all about profit, obviously with your team as well. I did
Yeah.
want to. It's
And
a
let me
bit of.
let me let me
Yeah,
just
please
point
go.
something out. Like we like talk about communicating and being transparent with the teams. Like a lot of the time, most of the time on these big projects, I mean, it's up to leadership and the foreman and whoever's running the job, whoever's in charge of keeping that job on pace. A lot of times, it's that paver operator. We'll go through and paint out. And that's another way of communicating. We'll paint out the entire project so everyone knows, and we'll put number one, number two. This is our first pool. This is our second pool. This is our third pool. And by the way, this is how many tons it should be taking. And we should be at this tonnage at this pool. And by the way, we should be at this time of the day during this pull and this tonnage and this. So now I've got 3 reference points anywhere I want to look on a parking lot and say, is quality on time? Does everyone know where we're going? Is our material and tonnage on point? And are we on schedule? So at any point in the day, whether it's 2 hours into the job or 9 hours into the job, I know if we're on track, you know,
Absolutely. Yeah,
and that,
it's for me as a business owner, it's all about setting up the systems to where I can have my sanity checkpoints.
no doubt,
You
dude.
know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
as
no
much as I want
different
to
here.
keep the project on as much as I want to keep the project on time, I want to keep my sanity intact. Is
Yeah,
is is my main purpose with that. Um,
absolutely.
so one other piece I did want to get to for this episode, it's going to be a two-part episode. This we're focusing more on the foundational aspects of profit margin, making sure the things in your system are working. And on the next episode, we're going to look a little bit more at accelerating that profit margin and what you can do for the growth aspect of things. But there was one aspect of kind of setting the foundation that I wanted to get to, and that was about the purchasing of things and whether what are some smart mentalities about buying that necessary piece of equipment. You're going to need a paver. You're going to need some essential items that are considered big ticket items. I was wondering if you had any kind of advice as far as whether it be negotiating a rate or things to be aware of, or just some general advice when you're making a purchase of a sizable piece of equipment.
Well, first of all, it's again, for me, it goes to understanding your numbers, understanding your data, and understanding uh, what piece of equipment you need and when does it make sense to purchase it. I mean, of course, everybody would love to have a brand new machine and or a bigger machine and or a faster machine. Uh, Unfortunately, when you get into that, those things tend to come with bigger and bigger and bigger, you know, payments and price points. And you've just got, for years at the other business, I ran the numbers every year for the last 5 or 6 years of my career there of, are we in it? Because we got to the point where we were subcontracting out so much milling. We were subbing out 3, 4, 500,000, $500,000 worth of milling for these capital projects each and every year. And it's like, are we to the point where we should own and operate our own milling operation because it financially makes sense to do it in-house rather than to continue to sub it up? Similar situation I'm in right now with our trucking. It's like, do I want to, are we in a place to take on the expense of a $200,000 triaxle dump truck? Oh, by the way, and a driver that's going to be expecting full-time work, and insurance on this vehicle, and matching benefits for said driver. And all, it's not just a $200,000 dump truck. It's like, what's the true cost of operating that truck on a 200-day work year? I know it's going to cost me, I don't know, somewhere in the neighborhood of $75, $80 an hour to own and operate that truck. Do we have enough work to justify that kind of expense? And it's no different with anything you buy, even if it's a freaking weed eater. Like, do we do enough weed eating to justify owning another weed eater? Or we have two weed eaters. Would it help if I could add another one to our production team? Would a third weed eater maximize our efficiency? Kind of the same situation. We go from handheld and backpack blowers to where we purchased two of the ride-on blowing machines because I knew if that $15,000 investment was going to allow me to go out and prep 3 or 4 additional jobs every weekend, that my seal coat crews could come behind and we could get another $50,000 of revenue every weekend. That blower paid for itself in the first weekend we owned it. So it's understanding your business. It's understanding what your manpower is capable of operating, and if that piece really makes sense. Everything's got to be a return on investment. You don't just go out and buy things to buy things and to have nice, new, flashy things. Of course, it makes everybody's life easier to some extent to have new, nice, expensive, more productive, but it doesn't make sense for me to go buy a $500,000 paver right now. I don't have enough paving work to justify that kind of expense. Next year we'll see. But until that point, you operate with what you've got. You build and you build resources and you save some money till you get to the point where that piece makes sense for your business, and not a day sooner. And you can't get there without understanding your numbers and understanding your data and how much that piece of equipment is going to cost. And on the flip side of that, how much that piece of equipment in turn is going to maximize your profitability. So you gotta know, you've got to know your data to be able to make any of those kind of decisions.
Yeah, I like that. Not a day sooner, because it
Not a day
really can.
sooner.
I mean, it will start taking away immediately and even cost you more down the line potentially
That's
if
it.
it's too early. Yeah, I mean, I operate the exact same way. It's gotta provide a good return on investment and make sense, and it should really feel more like a relief when you buy it, not exciting. Of course, it's going to be a little exciting, but you're not purchasing things because you feel
That's
like
right.
your business is supposed to have it. You're purchasing it because there is a gap where the profit margin is that you can be
Yes.
improving. And
Yes.
yeah, so man, love this stuff. Kev, is there anything throughout the episode that you wish you had gotten to touch on a little bit more?
Man, I can't.
All of it?
I could talk about this kind of stuff all day long, and I'm glad we're doing a follow-up episode to this. I mean, this is so important, and it's something I missed on for so many of the early years of my career, is just understanding my numbers, understanding my data, understanding my overhead, how to put an hourly rate on every. Not I'm just talking production overhead, but like your rent, your insurance, your cell phones, your advertising, like all these other things that you pay out to run your business over the year, you've got to be putting an hourly rate somewhere in your estimates to be covering that stuff. Like, and just, and I look, I could, myself included, obviously, but there's probably 20 people I could tell anyone that wanted to reach out and say, I could say, call this person, they'll help you walk through this and understand this, and they'll probably even help you implement it into your own business. Because the ones of us that have done it and figured it out, it's it's like clockwork now. We could explain it and probably get it implemented in someone's business by them just giving us some quick financial information and just help them understand how to do this. So I mean, just really starting to wrap, get especially for you young or up and coming or just starting a business, like there's got to be a balance between that field operator and or sales side of the business. Like you've got to start understanding the back end of the business as well, or it's gonna be a never ending cycle of eating your lunch, and it's miserable.
Yep.
That's why most people quit or go out of business or fail. I mean, it's just because they don't understand both sides of the business.
Sure.
They're usually really good at one or the other, and they can't figure out how to marry the two together.
Absolutely. Yeah, and a lot of people out there that enjoy what they do, would like to do it for themselves, and don't take the time, or it's just too much for them to really get into the other financial side. Or, we're even seeing the other way around now, where a lot of investment companies are coming in trying to buy paving companies who have the business side down but don't know anything about paving.
And
See,
sadly for those contractors, that ends up being called a hobby.
yeah,
Doing something they love to do every day, but don't have a clue how to turn a margin with it, man.
yeah, and you
And
want
it's
to
sad because there's a lot of talented guys and girls out there that they figure that other piece out, man. Their lives will change immensely.
absolutely. It is like anything though, and once you start practicing it, once you know where you go, once you have an expense, once you understand what your profit and loss even is or what it means, all these things build up, and it does become second nature. So no matter how intimidating a lot of these things seem, and I'm speaking from experience,
Yeah, it's overwhelming.
I came up through the creative realm. I gave a shot at college. I'm not able to read large pieces of text with my ADHD. So like college was impossible. I ended up going to trade school for audio engineering and things like that. So I started, with you 7 years ago now, and we were just starting making videos. So I had to learn all of this. I am a data nut now. Like I absolutely love it. But so if you need any reassurance that if you aren't starting in any kind of data or financial planning, financial organization, it can be done, and there are simple tools out there, and it's just really worth it. And it's worth it for not only your business but your family if you can get these things down. Because when it comes down to it, we're talking about, your livelihood as well, not just like the functionality of the
Yeah.
company and trying to stay more or gain a higher profit margin. We're talking about coming home and enjoying life and being able to truly afford to be able to give other people the opportunity to work with you and grow that profit margin and get a boat and go out on the river and stuff like that. So it's such a perhaps the most important piece of
Good thing for
business
those
all.
family discounts.
Yeah.
Those help sometimes
Yeah,
too.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So the other thing we learned here is find someone with a boat.
Yeah.
Make sure you hook up with them if you don't have one already yourself.
Yeah.
But it
Yeah.
just it's such an important piece, and perhaps the most important piece of running your business is really understanding where your profit and your loss is coming from.
Well, and you touched on it narrowly there, but it's such a disservice to every member of your team too, that you employ, that you're trying to build a business with, a brand with, and create a culture with. That if you're not taking the time to understand or realize when you're not making a profit, like you're leaving all of them vulnerable too, because they may have a job today and may not have a job tomorrow because you're not sure if you're making any money. So it's a huge disservice to your teams to not be starting to understand this stuff, so that you are able to reinvest in the company, because at the end of the day, those are the folks that are out there producing the work or handling the administrative side of the business or whatever they may be doing, selling. Like you got to look out for the whole pack, man. And it's hard to do when you don't understand the business.
Absolutely. Well, everyone out there, keep your chin up. I hope you all are succeeding at maximum capacity, and those profit margins are excellent. Please reach out and let us know if you have any questions about any of this stuff. We do plan on providing other resources. We are going to attack this on the off season, in the off season as well. I do want to point you to our website. There's a pacer manual there if you want to look at all the asphalt paving, anything asphalt paving related, honestly. It's a very detailed instruction manual, but perhaps a little bit more relevant is we have our commercial and residential asphalt paving processes. This is something that we put together to basically outline the process for our customers, but it works in-house. It can give you an idea of how our kind of flow goes as far as the information we can provide our sales team, our customer, and even our staff to help us understand a little bit more about what we do. But if you want to keep up, if you just need more right now, you can catch other episodes right now on YouTube. You can link up with us on Instagram at Pave It Forward LLC. And we'll also have some other things coming out here shortly. But for today, Kevin, any last thoughts for the people?
Oh man,
Go get it.
The data is the last thought.
The data. Yeah,
The,
find you if you are if find you a nerd. Man, nerds love talking about
find a
this stuff.
nerd.
We're nerds.
Yeah.
We're nerds.
I tell you, we're talking about blue collar paving asphalt industry, but those who have the most technology and the most data will win long term. It just is what it is.
Yes, and that's also one of the goals I wanted to provide with this podcast is that I feel like a lot of other resources will talk about the machines and maybe a few of the day-to-day things. But man, getting into this stuff, it truly can make a difference in your life. So, Kevin, thanks for joining us. I always appreciate it. And to you, the listener, if you want to keep this party going, Instagram at Pave It Forward LLC, or stick around on YouTube. And as always, thanks for your time.